What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hine Show. And it is Super Bowl week. Today is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. And joining me today in his first face reveal, he's done podcasts many times. He's been on my show so many times recently. I have Frank Laplaca of the Unofficial Bengals Podcast, also known as Cincy Bengals Pod on Instagram. How you doing today, Frank?
I'm doing great. This is the big week. Jordan, I appreciate being on. And for everyone out there that was wondering what I look like, this is it. And here we go, man. Huge week for us as Bengal fans.
Yeah, no better time to do a face reveal this week, with us being in a Super Bowl, so much hype around us. It just seems so weird. We're not used to all this hype. It's just so strange. Just 2 years ago, it seemed like there was hardly any Bengals fans. Now, 2 years later, it seems like everybody's Bengal fans at this point. And, playing the Super Bowl in LA, Super Bowl 56 against the Rams should be a great game. We have a lot to talk about, kind of have some topics in mind. Also, with the P talking about some different stuff as well. But, kind of the first topic here that I think is very helpful for the Bengals is that CJ Uzomah will, in fact, end up playing in the Super Bowl. So, Frank, what are your kind of thoughts on Uzomah going to end up, putting on the uniform and playing for Cincinnati on Sunday?
A couple things come to mind. One, heroic for him to do that. He took off the knee brace at the pep rally, and that was a very cool moment for Bengals fans. I'm concerned though, I always lean towards concern with these guys coming off of concussions, guys coming off knee injuries. In his case, when it first happened, the way that his leg got bent, I thought it was an ACL injury, and fortunately, after the MRI, we determined that it was an MCL sprain. Still a pretty nasty injury. So I admire him for coming back. I hope it doesn't affect his long-term future. He's too much of a gamer and too into this team to not want to be here and play in this game. So I give him a lot of respect for having the bravery to do that. And he really is putting the team and the goals in front of his best interest for his body. And what I really think they're going to do, and we all know, behind the scenes NFL stuff, they're probably going to shoot him up a lot with painkillers, and he's not going to feel anything on that knee, until a day or two afterwards, I guess. I heard he was running around at the pep rally, high-fiving people too. And I was like, you know what, man, take it slow. We need you for the game. But yes, I'm excited to have him in there. Whether he's 100% or not, they're going to have to pay attention to him. And I'm sure he'll grab a couple catches, make a few blocks. It'll be a decent game. Probably not his best game because it is a significant injury, but glad to have him back.
And it's one of those situations where you look at CJ Uzomah. He's one of those guys, I've said it a couple of times, he's not going to wow you on the stat sheet at all, but he can really do a little bit of everything. He can block really, really well. He can catch some balls when he needs to. He can deliver when you want him to, type of deal. He's very reliable. If you throw him the ball, he's going to, 9 times out of 10, he's going to end up catching it. And it's one of those things to me, with the leadership that he's had on this team, he's one of the players who's been on this, roster the longest. He's been through so much, being with the Bengals. And now, the biggest game of his career, it's great that he is going to be playing this game. It really shows how much how much the Bengals mean to him and how much this game means to him by him playing this Sunday, despite, obviously, despite he's more healthier than we thought he was. But there's still no way, he's even close to 100%, heading into this Sunday. But the thing I like about Uzomah playing is that it's another weapon for Burrow. And I've said it a couple of times, Uzomah's presence on the field at the same time with guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, really takes the pressure off of, Jamar Chase, trying to get open every time he can. Because when you look at a guy like CJ Uzomah, like I said, these 5-10-yard passes once every couple of drives really start to add up for Uzomah. With Uzomah has 35 yards and more, we are 6-1. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's really showing that when we get the ball moving around guys like Uzomah, Higgins, Chase, Boyd, even Mixon out of the backfield at times, this offense is nearly unstoppable to stop on offense. So I think it's a great addition and obviously a big boost to this Bengals offense that Uzomah will end up playing on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it comes at a well-needed time. Obviously, like we said at the top of the show, he's not going to miss this game for the world, so he's doing everything he can to prepare. And I do agree with you, those short intermediate passes, and he gets a lot of run after the catch, those are threats, and we'll probably see that happen a couple times in this game.
And something else, with Uzomah playing, I feel confident going into this game, regardless of Uzomah were to play or not. But if you look at that Bengals play calling when Uzomah went down, to me that was very questionable. I felt like they were the first couple of drives after Uzomah went down. There were several times I felt like they were just trying to force feed Drew Sample the ball a couple of times, which is definitely something we should really not be doing. And I mean, there is a significant gap of talent between CJ Uzomah, who is without a doubt had the best season of his career, and a guy like Drew Sample, who is primarily known for blocking. So, I mean, I know obviously, with Uzomah playing, that's going to be great, but I feel like, if Sample were to start this game and Uzomah not play, that would be definitely concerning, but I'm very fortunate we do not have, that's not going to be the case for us.
Agreed on that. Yeah. And Sample is primarily a blocker. And, if Sample was in there instead of Uzomah, that would be more defenders to kind of go against the wide receivers. They would, not really worry about Sample as much. So, yeah, I totally agree. It's good to have him back in any capacity.
And, when you look at this Bengals offense, I feel like we are unstoppable for the most part. I'm not trying to be biased. Even, I mean, if you just give us an average offensive line, we cannot be stopped. Even, I mean, getting sacked 9 times against the Titans in Tennessee, the number 1 seed in the AFC, and we're still able to pull off a comeback, victory, was able to beat the Titans. But, when you look at this Bengals offensive line, it's still not good. They have shown some flashes of promise at times, but also there's been times where they just do not look good at all. Obviously, this Rams team has one of the best defenses in the league, has the best defensive player, I would say, in the league. And Aaron Donald, you can honestly make a case that Aaron Donald might even be the best player in the entire NFL, and that's including the quarterback position, which really, says something. But, this Bengals team has given up 51 sacks this season. And, you look at this Rams defense, they've had 50 sacks on defense. So, I mean, this is a bad offensive line versus a great defensive line. So what are some things, in your opinion, that you think the Bengals can kind of prevent some of these sacks by LA?
Yeah, that is going to be the big concern in this game. If we can keep Burrow upright, we're winning the game. I think the only thing that could really get in our way is Aaron Donald taking over the game, Von Miller taking over the game, Floyd taking over the game. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. The most common theory is to chip Donald, have a running back help out, but that's a little more suspect. I don't know if that's the best answer. It just seems like the logical answer. But you definitely have to have two guys on him. It has to be a double team all the time when he's on the interior. They do put him outside sometimes, so that's going to be more of a difficult matchup. We're going to have a tight end helping there. But I think the real key to this is to move the pocket. Let's get the pocket outside. Let's not let Burrow sit back there in Donald's zone and have Donald just dominate, know where Burrow's going to be all the time. I think the key is going to be some creative rollouts. And one of the things that I mentioned in my podcast, I think that it'd be nice to have 3 wide receivers on one side. And I'm not going to go too much X's and O's, but 3 on one side with Uzomah being one of those guys and him come in motion and crack back on the defensive end and then move it out that way. So now Donald has to chase, pardon the pun, but Donald has to chase Burrow out to the right. We're sealing off that defensive end. It should open up things downfield. Now, I'm not an offensive coordinator. There's probably other theories to use, but to answer that question as quickly as I can, I would say let's move the pocket. That's probably our best bet.
I think that would be a great idea, having, Uzomah come out there, and block sometimes because, I mean, he's a pretty good, blocking tight end. Something else, when you look at Drew Sample when he was drafted in the 2nd round, I think pretty much all Bengal fans were kind of surprised at that pick. And just the fact that, pretty much regardless how Drew Sample plays, he's never going to live up to that 2nd round pick. But I feel like when you look at Sample, I feel like they have opportunities to really get Sample going in this offense. We really haven't seen fullback play by this Bengals team since Ryan Hewitt. He's been gone for several years. I know it's, it's kind of one of those sayings, if it's not broke, don't fix it type of deal. And it would be kind of weird, having a different game plan on some plays. I don't think it would be a bad idea to see Drew Sample at fullback, because you could have, if it's going to be a run play, you can have him block in front of Mixon. If it's a play action play, that's another guy that might have to block for Burrow. So I think that would possibly be a good idea. I don't know if we will end up doing it. And something else, I know this is really self-explanatory and obvious, but I really think that we need to just do some screens and short passes and stuff like that, because when you have guys like Chase who are phenomenal after the yards after the catch, a screen pass that might be 1 yard down the field, he could turn into 10-15 yards just all of a sudden. When you have these guys like Higgins or Boyd, they can make something into nothing. So I think that's not a bad idea, because you don't have a lot of time to throw. You don't have a lot of time to throw the ball, because that's a purposely that's a play that is not expected to be a long time. It's just a quick pass to one of your receivers. And something else, I really feel like Joe Mixon, if you start looking at some of the film and some of his catches the past month or so, Joe Mixon has been a lot more involved in this offense, pass catching wise, than he has in years past. I believe he had 6 catches this past week against the Chiefs. He's had quite a few catches the past several weeks, in the postseason and even towards the end of the regular season. So to me, I feel like even if you do a screen or some short passes designed like a swing route for a guy like Mixon, that's a play that's, it's not likely that you're going to end up getting sacked, or even, have a guy that we both talked about last week that we want to see play more, a guy like Chris Evans, who I think is much faster than Mixon. I think when you look at Mixon, Chris Evans, and Samaje Perine, I feel like Chris Evans is without a doubt the best pass catching running back that we have right now. So when you have that, I feel like, that's definitely a possibility, maybe getting these running backs more involved and just short passes, because short passes, a lot less likely to end up getting intercepted, less risk plays. And when you have these, running backs going out for passes, it's not a high likely chance for them to get picked. So I really feel like there's several things the Bengals can do to prevent sacks against LA, but it's just a matter of them actually doing it.
Jordan, I agree with all of those points. Literally, like everything you said are things that I would do strategically. So one, you have a fullback, or maybe we're going to call him an H-back if it's a tight end back there. But they've done that a lot in the last week or two. I was just calling like a max protect, where you had Burrow in the middle, a running back to the right, a tight end to the left. What the Bengals did more of out of that formation, though, they would release 1 or even 2 of those guys. It wasn't like a true max protect, but I think that would be the key, is having Sample as that H-back on a frequent amount of plays. And then the other thing that you mentioned is the quick passing game. You're right. This is a game where you can go 5 wide and just go at them, because the Rams secondary is probably the weakest spot in their defense. Even the linebackers, they have this incredible defensive line. They have Jalen Ramsey, and then everyone else is kind of vulnerable. So I agree. We're still going to go after Jalen Ramsey. We'll talk about that later and the ways to do that. But I would say, get the ball out quick, have that max protect look occasionally, and just like you said, get the ball to Mixon in space. Especially, you could do screens in the middle of the field, but that's going to be a little tougher with that pass rush. I like to see, like you said, more swing passes out and put him on the perimeter, because no defensive back wants to tackle Joe Mixon one-on-one, and he's been making a lot of hay in the passing game. So, I agree with all of those points as far as how to prevent sacks and get this offense going.
And looking at something else with Mixon, I feel like we need to get him more involved in the offense. And I know it's really hard to run the ball knowing that Joe Burrow, the play is not going to be in Joe Burrow's hands, despite everything he's done the past couple of weeks. But when you look at Joe Mixon, when the Bengals give the ball to Mixon, when Mixon has 80 rushing yards or more, we are 6-0 in the games he has 80 rushing yards or more. So that's something else I think that we maybe need to consider. But also when you look at it, when you go back and look at that Chiefs game, I feel like we were kind of, we're fixated on giving the ball to Mixon at times, especially when you look at some of those first down plays. To me, I still don't get why we ran the ball so many times on first down. You have to be aggressive. But I feel like instead of, force feeding the ball to Mixon when it's not necessary, but we've seen, a couple of times this year. But you also don't want it to be where Burrow throws 40, 50 times, something like that we've seen a lot of last season, that, there's a much likely chance that he's going to get sacked a ton. That was part of the reason why he got sacked so many times last year, is because he threw the ball so many times. But when you look at Mixon and Burrow, I don't think we need to be passing a ton. I don't think that we need to be rushing a ton. I feel like it needs to be perfectly balanced. And when you look at when we are a perfectly balanced team, when we run well and when we pass well, I think honestly, when you look at it, I think we're the best team in the entire NFL.
Yeah, those are good points. You're going to have to – you can't ignore the run. And like we saw in the last game, I mean, the Chiefs were getting 6, 7, 8 yards on first down constantly, and we were running for like a yard or two. It just wasn't working. But you can't abandon it because then you're going to give up time of possession. You're going to keep your defense out in the field longer. So there needs to be a balance of it without a doubt. I think this game is going to be won with Joe Burrow's arm, but also we can't ignore the run because they're just going to tee off and then they're going to just send exotic pressures and more guys in. And then you actually risk Joe Burrow getting hurt, which would be a disaster in this game. And for both teams, either one of these quarterbacks goes down and let's God forbid that it's going to be over because they don't have good backups. And, Brandon Allen, I like him. He's a Bengal. I'm on his side, but he's struggled in his appearances. So yeah, if Burrow's back there throwing 50 times, that's going to be a little dangerous.
When you look at, the Bengals offensive line, like I said, there's been times where we look good. There's been times we look horrible. And I really feel like a casual NFL fan, well, Burrow got sacked 9 times against the Titans. That is true, but he got sacked 1 time against the Chiefs. There were still several plays against Kansas City where Burrow very easily could have been sacked, but his pocket presence and his, mobility in the pocket was insane, escaping some of these sacks. I really feel when you look at, how many times Burrow has been sacked this year, that Titans game was the outlier. Sacked 9 times, that is not going to happen every single time you play a game. There's been multiple times this year where the Bengals have only given up 1 sack. And even when you go back and look at our one of our first games of the year, I believe it was our 3rd game of the season. Now, granted, TJ Watt was still out this game, but it was still very impressive. We did not allow any sacks against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and if they would have had a sack of that game, that would have been the longest streak in NFL history with sacks in consecutive games. So I feel like this offensive line, it is an issue, but it's kind of frustrating. Like, the potential they have. They're not going to be great, but if you can just get an average offensive line, but I think we have a very good chance. But our offensive line, it's very interesting because the inconsistency of it is a major issue, and I feel like that's obviously going to have a major impact on the game.
Yeah, and that is true. I mean, even though Joe Burrow got sacked 1 time against the Chiefs, my analysis just from watching it a couple times, I felt like he was running for his life in that game, and he was making a lot, he was escaping a lot, so the sack numbers weren't up for the defense. But it's just too many pressures, too many hits, too many times he releases the ball and then gets pushed. That's a trouble play too. When you release the ball, you're not bracing yourself and you get shoved. There's a lot of injuries can happen in that way too. So the offensive line has to be something that we fix in the off season. And I was saying, fortunately, Joe Burrow has to only play 1 more game behind this line because I do worry about his health, and that's no disrespect to the line. We all see the tape. We all know they're struggling. So I think that's something that they're going to fix in the offseason, but that doesn't help us this week. We need to scheme up things and do the things that we said a little while ago to prevent Burrow from taking a beating and prevent sacks.
When you look at this, Bengals offense, they're one of the best in the NFL, despite having a horrible offensive line. And then when you look at this defense, I feel like this defense never gets the credit it deserves because Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Mixon, all these guys, they're the ones scoring, but this defense never gets the credit they deserve. I mean, giving up 3 points in the second half in an overtime against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. If you look at the 2 second halves we played the Chiefs, we gave up 6 points. That is insane. If that was the Steelers defense, the Cowboys defense, we would still be hearing about that on ESPN, NFL Network, and everything like that. All the other, big-time sports media outlets. But, this defense, I think we're capable of having another good game. But I think it's going to be very, very hard to stop Cooper Kupp. He's basically like the Triple Crown winner of the NFL for a wide receiver. Most receptions, most receiving yards, and most touchdowns. And you go back, I know this was 2 years ago. This was Taylor's first season when we were horrible. And some of these guys are no longer on the roster. But Cooper Kupp had his best game ever against Cincinnati. I believe he had over 200 yards that game. And on only like 7 receptions, he averaged like over 20 yards, 20, 30 yards of reception, which is unheard of. Like, honestly, it's hard to do that on a Madden game. So I feel like we need to have another great performance. And I feel like if we can contain Cooper Kupp, we have a very good chance of winning this game.
Yeah, that's the key for the Rams offense. If they get him going and he puts up 150 to 200 yards, which he is capable of doing, we saw that, it's going to be trouble. So, but again, the way that we played against Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, we shut down some big time receivers recently. So hopefully some of the same scheming goes on. Obviously, they're different players. Hill is more of a deep threat. Kupp is more short to intermediate. But he is the one we have to focus on. And I've kind of kicked around the ideas on what to do with him. And, first I was like, maybe just have Awuzie follow him all over the field. But I don't know if that's the answer, because then you're messing up your right and your left corners and everyone's playing out of position. So I think we just kind of have to do things as we've been doing them, because Coach Anarumo has been scheming up things excellently. And I'm just going to trust his defensive coordinating skills, and hopefully he gets us into looks that really prevent Cooper Kupp's effectiveness. And after Kupp, you have Beckham as a threat. They like to throw deep to Van Jefferson. Akers has come back really strong. I know he had a couple fumbles. Let's hope that he has one or two this game. That would be great. Higbee's banged up. And there's a lot of weapons there, but it really comes down to Cooper Kupp's effectiveness.
And when you look at Cooper Kupp, it's really strange because, like, when you think of the Bengals and the Rams matchup, you would automatically think Awuzie on Kupp, but it's weird because I believe Cooper Kupp has over 1,000 yards as a slot receiver, which, at that standpoint, you would think maybe Mike Hilton would be on Kupp, but at the same time, Awuzie isn't a slot corner, but you'd still rather have Awuzie on Kupp because he's been phenomenal this year. And when you look at this Rams offense, like you mentioned, they have some other guys. Van Jefferson, he's has some great times, great plays at times, having some deep balls for 50 or 60 yards. You look at Odell Beckham Jr., he's still extremely overrated, one of the most overrated players in the NFL. Only has one 100-yard game, I believe, last like 2 years combined with the Rams and the Browns. But you mentioned Tyler Higbee. I think that is a very, very, very big thing to look into, with this game, because Tyler Higbee has the second most receiving yards on the Rams roster. And, this season we've been much better covering tight ends. But, there's been some times we've kind of, messed up. We look at Mark Andrews when we played against the Ravens. But, we've held Kelsey in check. We've held some of these other guys in check. But if you take Tyler Higbee out of the equation, that is a major boost to this defense that already I feel pretty confident in. And when you look at this defense, something else. We had 4 sacks and 2 interceptions in the second half in overtime against the Chiefs, which Patrick Mahomes never throws interceptions in Arrowhead in the postseason. If we were able to play that great against supposedly the best quarterback in the NFL, supposedly the best offense in the NFL in their home stadium, when you look at Matthew Stafford, I think Matthew Stafford at times can be underrated, but there's also times I could kind of see where he could be overrated. When you look at Stafford, when he's not pressured, he has 43 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. When you look at when he is pressured, he has 4 touchdowns and has more interceptions than he has touchdowns. So his stats and his play is significantly different than when he is pressured, when he's not pressured. We can get pressure to Stafford. Like I said, we sat to Mahomes, who's very mobile in the pocket. He's great at escaping sacks. Matthew Stafford is not one of those guys. So we can get some pressure on Matthew Stafford, a guy who is not known for his mobility at all, one of the very few pocket passers left in the NFL. That would be amazing for this defense. It would give us a great chance to win.
Yeah, I agree. And Stafford's a little bit of a mystery to me. I have seen a lot of Rams games, and there's times where I'm like, well, you know what? He is as advertised. He's good. Oh, wow, look at that throw. Look at this. Look at that read. And then there's times I'm like, he's not that good. So I don't know which one we're going to get. Hopefully we get the pressured, nervous Stafford as opposed to the poised, skill Stafford. But anything can happen with him. I'm not totally sold on him being a perennial Super Bowl champion type quarterback. So, and you brought up some good stats that I didn't realize about the pressure put on him. The thing about the Rams offensive line, I think they have a very good center and they're very strong at the tackle positions. So that could limit Hendrickson and Hubbard's effectiveness. So maybe the pressure is going to have to come from the interior, maybe, Reed or BJ Hill, and then maybe using the defensive backs on the outside, let the tackles, worry about our ends, and then you have Hilton or Bell coming in. So I think I'm not saying that Hendrickson is going to be ineffective because he could have a very good game against Whitworth. We don't know. But I think that with the strength of their tackles, we're going to have to think of alternative ways as opposed to just saying, let Hendrickson do his thing.
Yeah, because when you look at, Andrew Whitworth, despite him being 40 years old, and, when you look at it, there's a very good chance that this could end up being his last game in the NFL. He's still a top 5 tackle in the NFL, which is just absolutely insane, despite his age and, getting up there in years. And he is still year in and year out constantly being one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. And you already kind of mentioned, Hendrickson and Andrew Whitworth, but what are some kind of key matchups that you're really interested in for Super Bowl 56?
Well, I think the biggest matchup that I'm excited about is going to be Chase and Ramsey. And we touched on it earlier. I say just go for it. Just go for it. If we're just going to be like, that's Jalen Ramsey, do not throw the ball to Chase, that's going to affect us in other areas because they're going to be able to roll coverages off to the other guys and everyone's not going to be as effective. So I think that's the biggest matchup of the game for us. And I think that Chase could win it. I'm not saying every down. I don't know if Chase is going to go off for 100 yards. I hope so. But I can see Chase having some big plays because, they're just going to leave Ramsey on an island. And when we watch Bengal games, Jordan, I'm sure you do the same thing. You just wait for one-on-ones on Chase. I'm watching the defense get set up, and then I see like a single high safety in the middle, and I'm like, he's single covered. And then, ultimately they'll roll someone else and, pre-snap movement and stuff. But when we see Ramsey on an island against Chase out there, that's going to be worth the price of admission. I cannot wait to see it, and I do have faith in our guy. And other matchups, I would say the Aaron Donald matchup, Donald against Spain and Hopkins, Donald against Adeniji and Hopkins, or Carmen. Carmen might be getting the start, whatever. I think that's going to be another big matchup there. And obviously Isaiah Prince against Von Miller, that's going to be a scary one too. But I guess those would be the most exciting matchups for me, leading with Chase and Ramsey.
Chase and Ramsey, that should be a very entertaining matchup between the two. And it's one of those ones, it's like, Ramsey's one of the best corners in the league. You don't want to play scared. Like, you want to target him. You want to make him feel like you're not scared of him at all by throwing the ball to Chase. But at the same time, it's one of those situations where I don't feel like they need to force feed Chase like they did. It's interesting because when you go back earlier in the season, when we lost to the Jets and when we lost to the Browns, there was a few weeks span where Burrow was targeting Chase every single play, it seemed like. And that was when a lot of his turnovers and interceptions, came to be about. But after that, it really seemed like, we got the offense a lot more involved. If there's a one-on-one opportunity, and if it's Ramsey and Chase, you throw it to him all day. If there's no, high safety up there. But, that's going to be a great one. I feel like you already kind of mentioned it. Hendrickson against, Whitworth, that should be a great one. Or, with Hubbard on Whitworth. Either way, when you look at these guys, Hendrickson, when they signed him, I was not happy. I'm not even going to lie. I was mad that they signed him. I thought he was an overpay. He has, proved me wrong so many times this season. I've been glad that he has. Hubbard, a guy who has not been known to get a ton of sacks. He's more of a run stopper, has been great when it comes to sacks this season. Hubbard and Hendrickson, when you look at the stats, when it comes to pressures among a defensive lineman and sacks, they're right up there among the top. And, they're like the only duo in the top 10 or something like that, something crazy on some of those stats. But that should be a great one, especially, with the offensive line for us. When you look at Aaron Donald and Von Miller, that's going to be very difficult. With our, interior offensive line, Spain, I think he's probably our best offensive lineman. And if you have him on Donald, it's still one of those things. It's like, even though Spain's your best offensive lineman, it's still hard to say that you have, full, you really think Spain has a great chance against Donald. Donald is a nightmare as a defensive tackle, but it's interesting, like you mentioned, the right tackle, going up against Von Miller. And even when you look at this, I feel like just, our wide receivers against their corners, when you look at Boyd, Chase, and Higgins, okay, you have Ramsey, but after that, who do you have? You don't have another great corner. Okay, Ramsey and Chase. Okay, I'll throw it to Boyd, and he'll get me 10, 15 yards. I'll throw it to Higgins, he'll have me a great catch. Everybody's talking about Chase and Ramsey. Okay, you have that one, like, you don't have a good number 2 corner. And we have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL, I think that's something you definitely keep an eye on because, I mean, it's going to be very hard for them to stop Boyd, Higgins, and Chase because if you stop one, there's a good chance the other one's going to get the ball, 9 times out of 10. So I feel like our wide receivers against our corners is something that's not really being talked about enough because I feel like, we just have a far superior, matchup between those two.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be one of the keys. I wanted to backtrack to Hendrickson and Hubbard before I hit the wide receivers. I'm going to call Trey Hendrickson the best Bengal free agent signing in history. I mean, maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but off the top of my head, he seems to have the most impact. We had a lot of free agents have impact, Hilton, Ogunjobi, Reeder, Bell, all those guys. But it just seems like Hendrickson, if you asked me, that would be the best signing of all time for us. And then Hubbard on the other side, yeah, he is more of a run stuffer, not a huge sack guy, but man, he has come alive in the playoffs. He has had 3 exceptional games, and we talked about it a couple episodes back. Like, he played his best game of the season in round 1 of the playoffs, and it's nice to see that when the lights are the brightest, he's playing the best. Now, over to the wide receivers, I agree with you. I was fixated on the Chase Ramsey thing because that's fun. But if you look at their other corners, it's Long in the slot and Williams, and these guys aren't spectacular players. They lost Fuller, their safety for the year. They bring in Weddle off the street. There's a lot of vulnerability back there, and I agree with you. I think that Boyd and Higgins are key to have are primed to have monster games especially if they're going to roll another guy over to Chase, then really look out for those two. So, I think our wide receivers versus their corners is a major mismatch and probably the reason why we're going to be wearing a ring on our finger in a couple days.
When you look at this game, between the Bengals and the Rams, I feel like there's certain things when you look at the Rams, if just a few things go their way, they have a good chance of winning. But you look at the Bengals, kind of the same way. If just a couple of things go their way, they have a very good chance of winning. So what do you think some of the keys are to the game that would help the Bengals have a significant chance to win Super Bowl 56?
I think it's going to be what I said at the top, and that's just keeping Joe Burrow upright. If we can just give him a little bit of protection and let him do his thing surgically, I think that's going to be major. I also think special teams are going to factor in. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about. And, the Rams have a good kicker and a really good punter, and that punter's known for throwing the ball from time to time. So, it could be weird stuff happening there. So I think it's almost going to come down to the things that games are won and lost on. I think time of possession is going to matter. I think that field position is going to matter, and that's a big special teams thing. I think that also if we rattle Stafford a little bit, that's going to be a major thing in this game. And then the big things are you want to score before the half. You want to stop them from scoring before the half. I think those are elements to winning this game.
When you look at the keys to the game, obviously the Bengals offensive line is a major one. When you look at the Bengals, when Joe Burrow has been sacked 3 times or less, they have a much, much, much higher chance of winning the game. And then when you look at the times when Joe Burrow has been sacked 4 times or more, they have a under 500 record, I believe. Like, there's a significant difference between those two. I think that's a main one. Obviously, I would say the biggest one. But I would say also kind of our, defensive line, getting pressure to Stafford, like I mentioned earlier. He's a completely different quarterback when he's pressured, and he's not one of those guys we have seen, in the playoffs, honestly. Derek Carr isn't really mobile, but I would still say Derek Carr is more mobile than Matthew Stafford. Tannehill, he's a mobile quarterback. He's not going to flash you with his speed like a Lamar Jackson or a Kyler Murray, but if it's like a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, he's capable of getting those runs. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, obviously he's definitely capable of getting those runs because when you look at the 2 games in the playoffs before the Bengals played the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes had like 100 rushing yards in his 2 games in the postseason. So when you look at that, I feel like Matthew Stafford is easily the slowest quarterback, the least mobile quarterback we've played in postseason yet. And when you start looking at the quarterbacks we've played this season, I would say, honestly, he might be the least mobile quarterback we have played of any quarterback in the league except for probably Ben Roethlisberger. So if you get pressure to him, that is major. Because he's not going to be able to escape out of the pocket. He's not going to run away and throw it away and stuff like that because he's so slow. Even looking at the first game of the season, Kirk Cousins, he's one of the very few pocket passers left, and there was times he could not escape out of the pocket. And, we sacked him so many times where if he was just a little bit faster, he would have definitely thrown it away. So the fact that we have one one of the best defenses in the league, one of the most underrated defenses in the league, who just had 4 sacks in 1 half against Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead. I feel like getting pressure to Stafford is a must in this game, and I feel like we're able to sack him a couple of times. We have a tremendous chance of end up winning this game.
Yeah, Jordan, that's a great point, too, because, one of the things that hurts us and hurts a lot of teams is when that quarterback scrambles for a 12-yard first down. I mean, look at what Burrow did last game, those 2 huge runs on 3rd down. And I like that point that you're making there, because it's going to be – you're not going to have to really worry about with Stafford. Unless something really fluke happens, you can pretty much count on the fact that he's not going to hurt you with his legs. And I think that you're right about that, too. If you get him rattled, that's when he makes the foolish pass. That's when he drops back confidently, doesn't feel the pressure, strip sack. Like I could see things like that happening in this game. And if that happens, it's going to be lights out for the Rams.
And, when you look at the game, when the Super Bowl 56, obviously it's on a Sunday. And then when you look at, the NFL awards, in years past, it has been on a Saturday, but this year it's going to be on a Thursday. Which to me, I have never understood the reasoning of having the NFL awards before the Super Bowl. In my opinion, I don't think it makes any sense. I don't get it at all. But when you look at the awards this season, this is basically, it's not the NFL awards. It's like the Bengals awards, because when you think about it, Zach Taylor's winning Coach of the Year, Jamar Chase is winning Rookie of the Year, Joe Burrow is winning Comeback Player of the Year. And now I might be biased. I don't really care if I'm semi biased right now, because I 100% believe this. When you look at the NFL right now, in my opinion, there's only 2 players who deserve even conversations of being in the MVP. One is Cooper Kupp, because he's been phenomenal this season, having the most receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns as a wide receiver. And the other is Joe Burrow. And that's part of the reason why I think, the NFL awards needs to be after, the Super Bowl, because the 2 best players, in my opinion, the 2 clear top people for the MVP conversation are going to be in the Super Bowl. And I honestly think if it was right now, if I had an MVP, say, which clearly I don't, I think Joe Burrow is the MVP. When you look at the Bengals, the last 2 seasons, we've had 25 losses. That does not even seem real. And the fact that we are in the Super Bowl now, in his first full season, he takes us to the Super Bowl and not only gives us our first, playoff win in over 30 years, he gives us our first Super Bowl appearance in over 30 years. And in my opinion, I think you've said this too. I know other people have said this too. And the hardest division in the NFL, the AFC North. The AFC North has been one of the hardest divisions in the NFL for years. When you see these teams like the Browns and the Ravens, they're good teams. The reason they're not in the playoffs is because they have to play one another. And these teams are so good and so talented. I mean, Joe Burrow has been a top 5 quarterback this season. He's led the Bengals to the Super Bowl when Bengal fans did not even think we were going to be in the Super Bowl, especially, when you look at ESPN outlets who, when you looking at the AFC North, predictions, who's going to win the AFC North, I don't even think they talked about the Bengals. And when you look at Joe Burrow, he's done everything that nobody thought he was going to do. He said that underdog mentality. Oh, you don't believe we're going to be good? Well, we're going to be amazing instead of good. You don't think we're going to win a playoff game? We've won 3 and possibly a Super Bowl. This team won 4 games last season, and if we beat the Rams, we'll have 4 postseason wins this season. It is insane. The only other person, like I said, who should even be in the conversation is Cooper Kupp. He's been phenomenal. But no wide receiver has ever won the MVP, and that's why I don't think it's going to be Cooper Kupp. If Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or anybody else wins the MVP over Joe Burrow, I'm going to be so ticked off. I know it's probably going to happen because the NFL hates the Bengals. But in my opinion, Joe Burrow has to be the MVP.
I agree with you 100%. And early on, everyone was saying that Rodgers was going to win it. Brady's always a threat to win it. But when those teams exited the playoffs, it's like, you know what? If I always had my theory about the MVP, if you're the best player on the best team, then you're the MVP of the league. And that's what Joe Burrow is right now. And they're not going to give it to Kupp. I agree with you there, because just wide receivers never get it. I mean, I don't know if Stafford has a monster Super Bowl. I mean, well, if they were having it after the season, he could be a threat to get it. But I would love to see Burrow win it. Again, he's the best player on the best team.
Heading into this season, I picked Matthew Stafford to win the MVP, and my Super Bowl prediction is so freaking embarrassing. I'm so glad I'm wrong, but I just feel so stupid looking back. I had the Rams, and I had them winning it. And the team I had them playing was the Browns. There was so much hype against with the Browns this season, and Baker Mayfield, and they're going to be great. They're going to win the AFC North. I thought they were for sure going to win the AFC North. And, they're not even in the playoffs, and the Bengals end up winning the division. I know somebody who had the Bengals having 2 wins this season. That is so stupid. And we've done absolutely everything nobody expected us to do. The Bengals are what the Browns were supposed to be this season, and we have still exceeded expectations. And there were some people, I'm not being biased, heading into this year, in my opinion, Burrow was clearly the best quarterback in the AFC North, even before this season even started. There were some people who thought Baker Mayfield was better than Joe Burrow, and there were some people who thought Lamar Jackson is better than Joe Burrow, and there's still some people who think that Jackson is better than Burrow, which is crazy because when you look at Burrow this season, he's been a top 5 quarterback. He's been a top 3 quarterback. You can make a case he's been the best quarterback in the league this year, and everybody knows the MVP is a quarterback award. So why not give it to the best quarterback in the league? If Tom Brady is so valuable to the Buccaneers, why are the Buccaneers not in the Super Bowl, and why is Tom Brady already retired? If Aaron Rodgers is the MVP, why did he not even throw a touchdown in the postseason game? I mean, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers possibly being the MVP when Travis Kelce had more postseason touchdowns this year passing than Aaron Rodgers did. So it's crazy. I know I already said it, but I just don't get how people could say that Burrow isn't the MVP. It's crazy to me because he's done everything that nobody thought we were going to do this year.
Yeah, sometimes the NFL makes you earn it too. They don't want to give it to a new guy, especially on like an underdog franchise like ours. So I'm thinking if Burrow set the blueprint now, if he goes out there and does similar things next year, he's going to be a very big front runner for the MVP. But I want him to win the Super Bowl MVP because that means that we won the game and he had an outstanding game. And he is my favorite player. I root for him more than I've ever rooted for anybody. I mean, I root for all these guys hard, but there's just something about him. He just has the it factor. He's confident, but still has this humility about him and remembers where he came from. Obviously, his Heisman speech. There's just so much about Joe Burrow to like, and he's a great leader and et cetera, et cetera. So, man, I'm just crossing my fingers. Let's see Burrow be the Super Bowl MVP.
And something going back to the MVP, I feel like at the same time, if Joe Burrow doesn't win the MVP, I feel like that's going to put another chip on his shoulder that he's already had so many times this season. Go back and look at the Pro Bowl. I was so ticked off Joe Burrow was not selected as a Pro Bowl quarterback, but Lamar Jackson was. Clearly, Joe Burrow took that seriously, and since then, I don't think we've lost a game when he started. Like, we have been the best team, literally, since then. So, I mean, that underdog mentality, like I mentioned with Burrow, and, the chip on his shoulder and proving people wrong. If he doesn't win the MVP, I feel like, this Sunday, I mean, he has everything. I feel like he has potential to have another great game and prove people, well, I should have been a Pro Bowl quarterback. I wasn't. I'll go to the MVP. I'll go to the Super Bowl, and then I'll be a Super Bowl MVP instead of winning the MVP. Like, it's crazy that the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, playing this Sunday against the Rams. We've been, talking about, tons of different stuff here. But when you look at this game between the Bengals and the Rams, what is your score prediction for Super Bowl 56 between Cincinnati and LA?
All right, I'm crossing my fingers because last time we had the same score prediction. And although we weren't right, we were close and the Bengals won. So I'm curious to see what you think here. Vegas, from what I've seen, has the Bengals as a 4-point underdog. So I don't care about Vegas. I think that the Bengals are going to win this game. I truthfully do. They're like, when you go into the Super Bowl as like the hottest team in football, that's the team that wins it. When you go into the playoffs, that's what happened with us. We were a very good team during the year, and we just caught fire at the right time. So I think this is a Bengals win. I know this is a Bengals win. And I'm going to say that the final score, we're going to get 3 touchdowns and 2 Evan McPherson field goals. And I think that the Rams are going to just get 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals. So I'm saying 27-23, Bengals win the Super Bowl.
When you said 27, I thought we were going to have the same score again. It is super, super close. I've been going back and forth. I feel like the Bengals are going to win this game, but I keep going back and forth. What is my score prediction going to be? I think, when you look at it, I think we're going to get 3 touchdowns as well and 2 field goals by McPherson to make it 27. I feel like this Rams team will get 3 touchdowns and a field goal for 24. I think it's going to be 27-24. And when you look at it, you called it last time with Evan McPherson getting a game-winning field goal against the Chiefs. I feel like, have a storybook ending, ending it on a great note. I don't know why. I feel like McPherson's going to get a game-winning field goal to give him the Super Bowl win. It's just, when you look at how many times it's already happened this season, who's to say it's not going to happen one more time? 27-24 Bengals. And, wow. I mean, they got a chance to win a Super Bowl, which just does not seem real.
I know. I just can't believe it happened this fast. And we're going to be good for a long time. If you look at the two Super Bowl teams, the Rams mortgaged their future to make it here. And we've built cornerstones to continue to be here.
I mean, it just seems so weird. I feel like emotional just talking about it.
Yeah.
So who would you say, so we both have the Bengals winning. Who would you say your pick would be for the Super Bowl MVP?
I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I think he's just going to make big passes. I don't know if it'll be a 300-yard game, but I almost can guarantee he's going to throw 2 touchdown passes. He's going to work some Joe Burrow magic and get himself out of trouble, get some first downs, just have that team pumped up and just own it. So that's my MVP is Joe Burrow.
I'll agree with Burrow being Super Bowl MVP. Instead of winning the MVP, he'll just win a championship MVP instead. I feel like he's going to have a really, really good game. And it's one of those things, people have talked about, what if Chase would win it? I don't see Chase winning it because whatever Chase has, that means Burrow has. Plus, Burrow is going to have, a lot more better stats, with passing yards. I feel pretty confident saying the Bengals will win and Joe Burrow will be Super Bowl MVP for the first time. Hopefully, it'll happen a lot more. But keep an eye on the underdog and a dark horse to win it, McPherson. I feel like there's an actual chance that he could win Super Bowl MVP, which is insane. I don't remember the betting odds, but it was crazy, a long shot for McPherson to win it. Somebody, who bets on stuff, I don't think that'd be a bad idea at all. Because when you look at how many times he's been able to come clutch for us this season, having 2 different games this year where he's had 4 field goals in the postseason. So I'm going to say Burrow as well with the Bengals win, but McPherson, in my opinion, I think is somebody else to keep an eye on.
I agree with you there too, because if it turns into a defensive struggle, just say the Rams defense really stands up, the Bengals limit Stafford, and now it becomes like this field goal game, and McPherson kicks a couple 50-yarders and a game winner. I could see that too. And you got me thinking. I might throw a few dollars on that. That's a good idea.
It is so weird to think. I mean, the next time we would do a video, there's a good chance the Bengals might be Super Bowl champions. I don't even have words to put it into right now. It is just so weird that we might be Super Bowl champions the next time we would do a video. And this has kind of been Super Bowl preview. We've talked about the addition of CJ Uzomah, playing in the Super Bowl, how that will impact the Bengals offense, how the Bengals can prevent giving up sacks against the Rams, some keys to the game. Let's see here. Key matchups. The defense needs to have another great game, and why they would have another good game. Our score prediction. Why Joe Burrow is the MVP in the NFL, and our Super Bowl MVP as well. So, Frank, can you kind of tell some of the listeners where they can follow you on social media?
Yes, the name of my show is called the Unofficial Bengals Podcast, and you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Cincy Bengals Pod.
I'll definitely put in the links of that in the description below. I know you have a new episode coming out tomorrow, so definitely make sure to check out his new episode. I'll put the link in that below as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Follow me at the Sports Dude Hines Show on Instagram and S Dude Hines Show on Twitter. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hines Show.